I'm going to get off the camera.
Yo, yo, yo. This is another episode of the Culture Controversial Podcast. I'm your host, Simply Nicholas 87, and my co host, Ty H.
Hey, good evening. We're back at it again. And since we can't see him, you ain't going to see me. I ain't going
Yeah, we're going incognito mode tonight. Appreciate all the new subscribers. Appreciate the people that have been watching, sharing the content, liking the videos. We really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us for day number 2, man. Day number 2. But I know we've been missing for about 3 weeks.
to. We were gone for about 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah. I think the last game we covered was
We lost to North Rowan. I think it was the last game we covered.
North Rowan. But during the time we've had the Almar Anson game. Anson wins 17 14,
17-14.
17-14, and then they played Central Pageland last week and won by a score of 48-20.
48-21.
21, I'm sorry. I didn't go to the Central game, but my co-host definitely went to the Central game, and he could tell you what he saw. So, what did you see from the Cats this past week?
They seemed to look a lot more focused. They ran the ball at will. Offensive line dominated the line of scrimmage. Ran the ball really well. Jazir Griffin ran the ball with authority. That's the best I've seen him run the ball all year. What I'll say is what I like is that he ran in a way to where it wasn't like he was trying to anticipate contact. He ran in a way to where he was initiating the contact or taking on the contact versus running as if he wanted the weight to absorb the contact. That's he's running like he's healthy now. You can tell that he fully has his legs and he's confident in his health, and he ran with authority. Same thing with Patrick May. He ran with authority. There wasn't any dancing in the backfield or trying to cut and zigzag in the backfield. It was straight north south running. Quarterback Luke Hyatt played really well, managed the game well, ran the ball well himself when called upon. Made really good decisions with the football, especially in option plays when it was based on whether he was going to keep the ball or pitch it out. Made very good sound decisions with that. Also, I like play calling. The offense coordinator seems to have found a rhythm with his play calling. I like the fact that we were aggressive and that we were aggressive on first down. There were several times we took shots on first down, especially when we had good field position. We take shots downfield. I like how they want to take shots downfield with Jaden Little. Jaden also played well and was able to make a couple of big deep catches that kept safeties out of the box. So offensively, I liked what I saw. Defensively, I think we played well enough to win the game. There's some things that still concern me. Primarily defensively, the one thing that concerns me is when the pocket collapses, our defensive backs sometimes get caught looking in the backfield and then scramble out when if we don't get a sack or we sometimes on scrambles we're missing tackles, which causes quarterbacks to scramble out. And when they scramble, our defensive backs sometimes get lost looking at the ball in the backfield, and that allows sometimes an easy completion and some big plays that shouldn't be allowed. In this game, it was inconsequential in this game because we were able to dominate at will, so it didn't cost us anything. But in a close game, that could be costly. So that's something they got to clean up. Another thing that still is irking me is the inability to efficiently get our personnel groups on the field. There were still too many times where either we had to burn a timeout or we were struggling to run personnel on and off the field. An example of that was on an extra point, but we ran out there. We only had 8 men on the field, and we were scrambling to get 3 more guys out there in the field. At midseason, that shouldn't be happening. That should happen when you have a full coaching staff. That's just downright bad and unacceptable at this point. If you got a full staff, and there were too many times we had too many men or too few men, and we're trying to at the last second trying to scramble personnel on the field. You got 9 assistant coaches. That shouldn't happen when you got 9 assistants there. It's not like we're short staffed this year. We won the game. I'm happy we won the game. We played well overall, played very well. But those little things like that still can come back to haunt you in close games. So that's got to be cleaned up and cleaned up immediately, and it has to stop. That's just a lack of organization and showing that's a reflection of being unorganized. That's the only way to describe it at this point. But
And just disclaimer, I just want to put this out here: we're not criticizing anybody's youngins, not at all. So I just
yeah,
want to put it out there.
haven't said anything bad about anybody's kid. I'm just
I want
talking about
just a game.
right. And one thing about it, I want to tell you what I see, and if that upsets someone, then you're just gonna have to be upset because I don't work for you. I'm talking about who if anybody's upset. Now, back to the original point. Those are things that got to be cleaned up. But overall, we look a lot better. We look
Mm,
a lot better. We look a lot more explosive. Offensive line, the continuity of the offensive line was really well. We were able, like I said, to run the ball right down the throat without any problem. We had a turnover in the third quarter. It was an exchange with the running back QB. I think it was it might have been where at the mesh point there was ball got dropped. But I'm talking about. Overall, I think we look a lot better, and we look like a team that's starting to buy in and get a little steam. I remember I talked to coach after the game. He said they had a very good week of practice last week. He said on that Monday when they came in, they were really focused. If that could continue, I think we can put together some wins. See if we can go on a run. I we came off bye week when off of that win against Albemarle. It wasn't a pretty win, but a win is a win. I'm thinking maybe that win could have sparked a level of focus because you went into a bye week coming off of a win, so now the entire morale has changed, and you're coming back, coming off of a win with a positive mindset versus coming off of what would have been 4 losses in a row. So we started out losing 3 games in a row. We've won our last 2. Got a great opportunity tomorrow against Parkwood. That's an opportunity we can get our record back to 500. Then we, and get off to a 1-0 start in the conference. We'll be headed in the right direction going down the stretch. I think this team still has potential to be a good football team and it could be a tough out against anybody. The talent is there, and now it seems like they're starting to buy in and it's coming together. So I'm happy to see I'm happy to see the improvement and the growth as the season goes along. Because the thing is, it doesn't matter how we got started. Right now, it's go time. We're going into conference play. This is the meat and potatoes of the season. This is the part of the season that can make or break your season. And we got a great opportunity in front of us because everything that Coach Jackson has preached to these guys, everything that they've worked hard for during all season, everything that they're trying to accomplish is still in front of them and still attainable. So the opportunity is there. It's right in front of them.
right. Um, I agree with you as far as like I like what you said as far as like their focus to practice. Um, that's a good thing. That's a real good thing. That's what you want, especially going into conference play. Like this is like just forget the first 4 games, 5 games.
Mm-hmm.
It's go time now. It's 0-0.
Yep. And
I get you got some L's on your record, but it's 0-0 now. You got no L's, no wins on neither side on this part of the season.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I've seen situations like this. I remember back in 2006, and I'm not saying that we're the same team or will have the same fate as this particular team, but my point is, you never know what happened. The Concord Spiders got off to an 0-3 start. They looked bad. Coach Easy Smith made some adjustments, moved some people around. They After they lost the first 3 games, they started to win a couple of games. Still, the first game they won, I think they barely beat a very bad Puerto Ridge team, 21-16. Still
Mm,
didn't think of it. But then they started putting some wins together. Then the next game, the margin started to get bigger. They got into a rhythm, started believing. Next thing you know, they end up on a 13-game winning streak, winning a 3A state championship. Now, I'm not saying that, we're going to win 13 games in a row and win a 2A state championship. But the point I'm making is that you can still, even after a bad start, you can still catch a rhythm in the season and get onto a great run. I
right,
remember the 2008 Anson team got off to a 1-3 start before going. That's including the first conference 0-1 in conference. Went on to win 7 games in a row, win the conference championship, and end up getting to the third round of the playoffs that year. So my point is, you can get off to a sluggish start, still catch a rhythm, end up having a successful season. And these guys got an opportunity to do that. I know people talk about winning conference with Forest Hill and winning conference with Monroe. I understand all that, but at the end of the day, those games are ahead of you and they have to be played. And once those when those games are played, those outcomes be determined on the field, not based on
The name. I think it's more so the name. When like what you said, like everybody said, oh, well, Monroe and Forest Hills. Okay, it's just Monroe and Forest Hills. They're places.
yeah. And well, Bob and Monroe Forest Hill face off this weekend, so that'll kind of give an idea of who stands atop or who looks superior to. I personally
Yeah,
think I know Mr. Griffin gonna disagree with me because I know he has the opinion that Forest Hill is better than Monroe, but I think that Monroe is better than Forest Hill. I'll probably get up with him tomorrow at the game if we keep track of the score. Um, but, but those two face off tomorrow at Monroe. We'll be right
mm,
down the road from Monroe, 7 miles away across the county in Parkwood. So I think
yep.
I think I personally think Anson's going to come out and play really well tomorrow. And I hope they don't make me look bad and eat my words. But I think the last couple because I've seen them improve from ever since the second half of that North Lorraine game. They've looked like a different team.
I can
It's
agree.
because if you draw a parallel to last year, on the negative side, they got off to a good start, and ever since the second half of the Albemarle game last year, they looked bad. Now when you spin it around the next year, and it's like got off to a bad start, and ever since the second half of the North Lorraine game, we've looked good because in the second half of North Lorraine, we came out fired up. It's just that we got down by so much because we didn't come out ready to play.
Right.
And then in the second half, we sparked the fire, and from that point, we played winning type football since then. It was an ugly win against Albemarle, but nevertheless, it was a win. It doesn't make a difference whether it's pretty or ugly, whether you put lipstick on it or not. It's still a win. So we won that game. We eked out one there. Um, and then came back and had a dominant win against Pageland Central. And that's a Pageland Central team that they were a struggling team, but they're no worse than they're not any worse than Albemarle. I would say they're better than Albemarle talent wise, and we beat them by a stronger margin because we played a better football game against them. They've also they played they played Parkwood early this year too, and so so one thing I will say is don't assume just because Pageland beat Parkwood early in the year means that we got a walk in easy victory. We still have to do what we have to do. We still, like Coach Jackson said, it's about us taking care of our business. That's what he said last week. I think
Right.
right now the team coming off of 2 wins. I think they're finally focused. I think they're finally in the game shape, up to speed. You got to realize some of the guys were late getting there to joining the team before the season started. Now the guys have kind of gotten in rhythm. I think now by winning 2 games in a row, they're buying into what Coach Jackson is selling, and they see that hey, what he's selling. If we do what's asked of us, what can be done. I think they're starting to see how good they can be.
I agree.
And I said across the board, like I said, we got athletes. Jazir Griffin's a heck of an athlete. Um, Jaden Little's a heck of an athlete. Kendrick Mayer's a heck of an athlete. Courtney Sturtevant's a heck of an athlete. We got, and I may miss some guys. Leontae Little's a heck of an athlete. Daquan McKeever, glad to have him healthy. That's a big return. Ever since Daquan McKeever's been back, we've been playing better football too. Daquan McKeever's a heck of an athlete. So we got guys out there who can go out there and play. Uh, it's just a matter of being fundamentally sound and not beating ourselves. I think the first 3 games of the season, I think it's safe to say that we went out there and we beat ourselves.
That's
But
fair. That's a fair assessment.
yeah, especially against the first game of the season um, against North Stanley. Again, the first game of the season against North Stanley, I also didn't think. I mean, no disrespect to anybody, but I also think that not all that was on the players. I'm about to say the players lead where they follow who leads them, and this is not a shot at anybody. But I don't think that was a well managed game against North Stanley, and I don't think those guys against North Stanley were put in the best position to win. And I think that's a game. If we had to do over again, I think it would have been managed differently, and our guys would have been put in better position to win. The game against Sun Valley, we had opportunities in that game too. That was a 7-7 game late in the game, and we imploded in the fourth quarter. The game against North Lorraine, we were just not focused in the first 2.5 quarters. We just didn't come out to play. I mean, that's what it came down to. And then in the fourth quarter, they woke up and played against Albemarle. It was a sluggish, ugly game, but we made enough plays to win. And then last week against Pageland Central, it seemed like we came out from the very beginning ready to go and never looked back. And one thing I like about that is when Payson tried to make a run and get back in the game, but we didn't crumble, we didn't fold. When they put that game down to 34-21, we came right back and answered with back-to-back touchdowns and put the game away. I think that's a sign of maturity because I've seen in the past when a team start to creep back in the game like that, we just fold and we let them do it. Whereas in this case, we answered when they tried to make a run and we put the game away and we didn't let them think about it. So I'm happy to see that. Like I said, at this point, the main thing is just clean up a little bit when it comes to make sure we got our personnel on and off the field, and that's where I think I'm sure the staff had putting a focal point on that and making sure that those problems don't persist because you don't want to have to burn timeouts unnecessarily because you only got 9 guys on the field. That thing, stuff like that shouldn't be happening now.
Right.
But as far as the effort from the guys look focused, and I feel optimistic, cautiously optimistic, optimistic. They're going to come out there and play well tomorrow and get the record back to 500 and get off to a 1-0 start in the conference. If that plays out the way I think it'll play out, I want these other teams and everyone else to look out because as Mr. Sanders said, we're coming.
We're coming. And I like our chances. And when I say chances, you got what 5 games left.
Yep.
Dominate tomorrow. You got 4 games left.
Yeah, and at tomorrow, your second game, I think is on the road again against Piedmont, right?
Yeah, it'll be Piedmont.
Right. Those I know
Dominate.
it's 1 week at a time. I know it's 1 week at a time, but those are 2 games that you have to win. I mean, no ands, ifs, and buts about it. You have to win. Those are teams that are struggling, and those are your first 2 conference games. And as you're improving, getting better, you can't have a setback. If you're trying to get to where you want to get to, both of those games are must wins. But go ahead.
I'll say this. Like you said, those are both must wins because those last 3, if you can pull out 2 for those last 3, that's it. That's good. You're 4 and
Right.
1 in conference.
And like I said again, I know Coach Jackson will stress 1 week at a time, which is correct.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if you're looking at what's left, tomorrow you got Parkwood. After that, you got Piedmont. Then you got Monroe at home. Then you go to West
West
Stanley out there to what looks like Circle G Arena. But they're the West Stanley. And then close out at home against Forest Hill. So I'm about to say but the thing about it, if we can hold on to win tomorrow, that's a 3-game winning streak. The thing that's different now is last year we went into conference, we got off to a good start of the season, went into conference on a losing streak, struggling. This time we got off to a bad start, but we're going into conference on a winning streak. If we
Yeah.
could win this game tomorrow, our record would be exactly what it was at this time last year. It would be 3-3. The difference
Mm-hmm.
is we'll be 3-3 trending upward instead of 3-3 trending downward.
Backwards.
Uh,
Yeah.
right now, we're starting to play our best football at the right time of the year. Granted, I want to win every game you play. We had no business losing North Stanley and especially North Stanley and North Lorraine, really some value too. And I wish we had those games back, but nevertheless, that's over and done with. But at least now we've woken up and we're starting to play good football. And like I say, every goal that we have for this year is still attainable and still in front of us. And
Right.
like I said, these guys got a great opportunity in front of them to get to 500 and to get to 1-0 in the conference. At that point, because no matter what Monroe Forest Hill and stuff has done up to this point, starting tomorrow night on out, these are the games that are going to really determine who makes the playoffs and what position they get in the playoffs.
Right. Coffee with the foe was good, man. Salutes to Coffee with the foe. Y'all go sub up to Coffee with the foe. He will be battling tomorrow in the first round.
Oh, he's going to be in the sneaker battle?
Yeah, he's in the first round.
Gotcha.
They main event.
Appreciate him stopping by.
Oh yeah. I'll say this, like again, this is you're 0-0.
Yep.
Take what you can take it now. Is that those first few games, they're over and done with. You can't get them back. You can't rewind it. Learn from it. You're hitting in the conference. And don't no disrespect to nobody because I don't disrespect. So how can I put this in a nice way? This is a pie conference.
I don't know what that means.
Uh, this is a cake conference.
I wouldn't say that now. You got two teams that look to be state championship contenders, so I wouldn't go that far now.
Well, what I'm saying, well, I can't use the past with the now, but I'll just say this: you take that 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and put it in, and line it up with a '01, a 2000, a '09. This will be an undefeated season. That's what I'm saying. But
Yeah, we had a much we had a much better program during that time too. So I mean that
yeah,
at
that's what I'm getting at.
that point it didn't matter what conference we were in. We were just a better program. But go ahead. Yeah,
Yeah, that's how I was getting at. That's why I was like, I'm not
yeah.
disrespecting.
Don't run. I, and the thing about it with the conference and having in the recent years not being that good, some of that is our fault because we've been bad during some of that time. So,
Yeah,
and so like last year we finished, I think,
second to last.
yeah, something like that. So we were part of the problem. So we were one of the reasons it was weak. And it was weak. The conference was weak during that time when Monroe wasn't back and when Mount Pleasant was winning it and stuff. But at the same time, we had about three different chances to win it ourselves that time and still didn't win it. So um, whether the conference is weak or whether the conference is strong, we got to do what we need to do. Because the thing about it, we can't control who's weak and who's strong, but we can control what we do.
Right.
And I know right now we got two teams that are ranked in the AP top 10 that's in this league, and furthermore, two teams that are ranked in the Reserve Sweet 16 that's in this league. And then, of course, we're talking about the Monroe Redhawks and the Forest Hill Yellow Jackets. And again, all that is grand, but the conference championship will be determined on the field.
Right.
And advance and the thing about it, unless they change the way they put their cleats on, everybody's 0-0 going into the league tomorrow. So Anson County has just as good a chance as anybody else.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I'm not
what
taking that away.
is you can't just look at the schedule and write down two L's. And just like you can't look at the schedule and write down three W's. As each game is its own entity, and we need to treat Parkwood tomorrow just like this is a playoff game. I mean, that's the intensity that needs to be there because because that game will factor in whether you make the playoffs or not. So it's important and pertinent to win that game. The
Right.
same thing against the next week against Piedmont. It should be the same mentality. To me, going into the conference, especially with the slow start that we got to me, we should treat this like our playoffs because if we treat this like our playoffs and prepare for it like these are playoff games, that can help us get in position to get into the playoffs. Um, Not only the playoffs is a legit possibility, but a conference championship and home field advantage through some rounds is a possibility. But you got to win ball games for that to happen. And the first order of business is beat Parkwood tomorrow.
Right.
Like I said, everything that Coach Jackson and the Bearcats have set out to accomplish this year is still attainable. All of those things are still attainable. All of those things are still in front of us and a legit possibility and in front of us for us to do. I'm sure one goal was to make the playoffs, one goal was to win the conference championship, make the playoffs and all that stuff. All of that is still possible and can be done. Whether it will be done or not, they hold the key and determine that, but it can be done. It's not like we're at the point where everything that we hope for is out the window.
Yeah.
We got off to a bad start. But the thing about it, what are we gonna make out of that? We've shown resiliency. We lost our first three, came back and won our next two. We've shown the resiliency. We've shown and we're showing signs that we can be everything that we hope to be. It's just a matter of taking the lessons learned from those losses, applying the things you did well from those victories, and continuing to get better. And it makes me happy to see at least that we're improving as the season goes on instead of getting worse. And it's
Yeah.
funny, Jazir Griffin, not Jazir, his dad, Jermaine Griffin said something to me after the North Rowan game, and at first I kind of brushed it off, but now it makes a lot of sense. After we won that game, he said he's cool, and I said why? He said because they showed me some fire. He said now at least I know they have it in them, and I was like yeah whatever. We just lost another game, but now that I see how it's carried over the next few weeks, now what he said makes perfect sense. So I see where it's coming from, and it seemed and now the words he said the things that he was looking at are coming into fruition as we see whatever he saw let them know that hey, this team may be en route to a turnaround, and it's looking like so far. Jermaine knew exactly what he was talking about when he said that.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, it comes with a balance. They probably, I'm not gonna say they played their most complete game last week, but
Most complete one of
way
this season.
better game. If
It
I
was
can
the
say,
most. It was the most complete game they played this season.
yeah. I mean, what I'm saying is, it's not like they dominated on. Well, I mean, they won offensively. They dominated. Defensively, they did what they had to do to win. And I don't know about special teams.
Especially, I mean, we had a boxed extra point, but aside from that,
Yeah,
nothing crazy that nothing to the point where it's like, man, this will cost us a game. Special teams been ever since they brought the special teams coach in last couple years. Special teams have been better. You remember last year they brought the special teams coach in, they've been much. Special teams have been better last, even when everything else got worse. Our special teams have been better since you can say last year. You remember they brought in a special teams coach, and you could tell they as far as kick coverage and on and punt coverage, they look much better.
all right.
So I mean, we I think that we can win any game that we play in going forward. It's just a matter of doing it.
Agreed. And
Now, because I mean, if you don't come out and do what you're supposed to do, yeah, you can look like you did the first 3 weeks. But if you can come out like you did last week, because this is not college football where you got one team with a bunch of 5-star recruits, you got one with a bunch of 1-star recruits. These are all high school kids, all with similar demographics, all with a similar amount of players. Monroe played a ton of guys both ways too. That's why Monroe lost to West Charlotte, because they got tired out at the end of the game.
West Charlotte got dipped.
Yep. But West Charlotte's a 3A school. They probably got a 4A size enrollment.
Right.
And so you probably talking about like 1,800 kids they got at West Charlotte to choose from, which is so they got like 4A size enrollment and playing in Class 3A. They got a lot of depth at West Charlotte. And from what I was understanding, they cramped up late in that game. That game was 29-29 late in the fourth quarter, and the guys cramped up. They ran out of gas, lost the game 43-29. So my point is, we have a lot of guys playing both ways. They got a lot of guys playing both ways. The Yellow Jackets got guys playing both ways. So we're not at a competitive disadvantage to our peers.
No. I'm not saying that. No.
And quite frankly, if we play like we're capable of playing, we should that game tomorrow should be over at the end of the third quarter if we play right.
If we
I mean,
play,
still got to do it, and
yeah,
and we can't be sloppy. We can't come out thinking we're all Pageland beat Parkwood, so this should be an easy win because we handle Pageland. You can't come out like that. You
yeah,
got you got to treat each week as its own.
yeah. And another thing, like I said, I don't know, as far as the 2A, like when you consider who is the top dog in 2A, because I really don't know this year, and I hadn't really heard too much about 2A.
Yeah, well, I know the Shelby Golden Lions are not quite what they're still good, but not quite.
Quite as good, yeah.
Yeah, I hear about Reedsville. I think they're good. I don't know if they're back to if they're
Yeah.
state championship good. It's mid season, so you never know.
Oh yeah, that's what I said. They play a lot of non-conference games, so it ain't no time they play really good teams.
I mean, from the naked eye, I mean, and I know this is going to sound contradictory to what I just said, but I mean, Monroe can play with anybody. As far as I'm not talking about will they or whatever. I'm talking about as far as athletes, coaching, and all that. We know Coach Sowell. Speaking
Yeah,
of, congratulations to Coach Johnny Sowell being selected the coach North Carolina, the head coach of North Carolina Shrine Bowl team. Coach Sowell is an excellent football coach. To me, he's the greatest coach in all of Union County history. That's in any sport. The greatest athletics coach in Union County history. Won the state championship in football and basketball, and all these years have been the coach of Monroe's football and basketball team, and have managed to have elite teams for both, even while trying to juggle both. So, congratulations, Coach Sowell. Coach Johnny Sowell and the Monroe Redhawks can play with anybody, but that doesn't mean they're invincible. So, who knows?
yeah.
The thing about it, I'm not about to crown somebody else's state championship until all that's determined. So
Yeah.
like in 2006. At this point in 2006, nobody was thinking Concord had a chance to make a run at the state championship.
Yeah, nobody did. I'll be a voucher to tell you. I
Yeah,
didn't.
no. but and because their record at that time, at this point, at that point in the season, they started 0-3 with 2-3, went into a conference game against Porter Ridge, a bad Porter Ridge team, barely beat them 21-16, got 3-3. So I mean, I know people might think I'm crazy by saying what I'm saying, and don't get me wrong, Coach E.C. Smith was already a state championship winning coach and had an elite coaching staff and he really did a heck of a job coaching those guys up. So I mean, it took a lot to happen for that to work out. But one thing, some parallels I think of, they had a deep threat connection between when they made the moves. They had a deep threat connection between D. Boston and Lance Lewis.
Yeah.
We have a connection between Lukai and Jaden Little. So I mean, and I'm not comparing Jaden Little to Lance Lewis, what I'm saying, but similar parallels. They had Roger Smith, very good running back. We got Jazir Griffin and Kendrick May. We got two outstanding running backs, and the offensive line plays well. The key is going to be if that offensive line continues to play well. We didn't have any bad snaps, any costly snaps from the center to the QB or any of that. All of that seemed to look a lot better. If we don't have self-inflicted wounds, just play clean football, we can play with anybody.
Agreed. And that's what I wanted to say from the beginning of the season. I don't think it's not that. It's just like you said. Sometimes it's a lot of the. I don't even want to say that because then it sounds bad. But like you said, a lot of it comes from coaching. Certain things.
You have a right to your opinion to make your assessment. So I'm listening.
Yeah, and I think it's just coaching. It's not because you got a talented roster.
Yeah.
You put that. That's just. I'm not playing devil's advocate. You put that roster with a Johnny Sile and watch what happens. Team must be the same as Monroe, or even better. You put it with, it's just certain things.
Well, a lot of it, I think. One thing I saw Friday, Jackson was coaching those guys hard, and you could tell that he felt that game was important, and you could see it. He was fired up, and I remember when we were up big, we got unsportsmanlike penalty. I thought the penalty should have been on Page, but they called on us, and I saw the intensity when he was getting on his guys. I'm like, guys, like we can't make a silly, we can't get caught up like that and getting costly penalties. I think he's preaching the message. And I think that I think he's giving them proper guidance. It's at the end of the day, he's one man,
right?
And collectively, the guys, and I'm talking about the staff, got to make sure that they're on their P's and Q's because you can't. The thing about it, if he's there, it shouldn't be up to him to make sure that there are 11 guys out there. You have people designated for that. So that's something that he shouldn't be having to worry about.
Right.
That's the whole point. So I don't want to single him out because I think that granted he chooses who he has there with him, but at the end of the day, everybody got to hold themselves accountable. He's just one man.
Yeah.
And like one thing about it, he can't go out there and tackle anybody. I like to say, and I'm not trying to and number one, he's a person that accepts criticism, takes self
Your
accountability.
lock your coaches up now for that, so don't go out there and tackle nobody. Sam, what's up, man?
He hasn't. What's up, Sam? He Ralph hasn't fumbled any ball. Ralph hasn't thrown any interception. Ralph hasn't missed any blocks. Ralph hasn't missed any tackles. Ralph hasn't gotten burnt in the secondary. So my point is, yes, I understand that the coaches put guys in the best position to win, but at the same time, guys still got to make plays.
Oh yeah.
I think it's a balance, and also. Just like with UNC Charlotte, like Coach Poach said, he said he delegated things out. He said, but at the end of the day, sometimes if things don't go the way you want them to go, he have to take matters into his own hands and do things differently. I think at this point, I think Jackson understands what's at stake, and I think he understands that he has to have his guys focus, and I feel like that going forward, he's going to have his guys focus.
I think so too. And I'll say this: it's nothing wrong with taking control. You're the head coach. If you feel the need to take control, take it.
And what I will say is Coach Hyatt called an excellent game against
Oh, I
Patriots.
believe it. I
Give
believe
credit
it.
to he was in rhythm. They weren't predictable, and they kept Patriots defense off balance the entire time. That was he was aggressive on first down. That was an excellent game Coach Hyatt called on Friday. So I'm gonna I got to give credit when it's due. I thought as far as the management of the game Friday, I thought that's the best that we probably looked in about 3 years.
And that should carry on. And with that, having a good week of practice, preparation, knowing your opponent, knowing
Yeah.
what the tendencies are. If you
But
come in locked
I
and loaded
personally, man, I did not expect what happened last Friday to happen. I'm not saying I didn't think that we couldn't win the game, but I didn't expect that.
in blowout fashion,
Yeah, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect us to come out there and drop 48 points. I didn't expect that.
I'll take it.
I'll take it too. And I know someone might say, well, the opponent was 1-3 going into the game. I say I understand that, but we've Albemarle was 0
Oh,
and we only were able to muster 17 points against them. And this Payson team got more depth and better than Albemarle. So I mean, and no disrespect to Albemarle, I'm just being frank about it. So to me, this is more about us and what we were doing versus any deficiencies that our opponent had. I give credit when credit is due. I think overall Anson played a very strong game, and Coach Hyatt called an excellent game, and Jackson was definitely had his guys focused, and like I said, he said that they came in that Monday focused and ready to go and had a great week, and it carried over. And I hope the young men see that, hey, you see what happens when you properly prepare. They
yeah,
now they can see when Coach Jackson's telling them that when you prepare properly, you're going to get the results that you want more times than not. They came out, had an excellent week of preparation, and it carried over, and they looked the best they've looked all year. They had the best week of practice they had all year, and it translated into the best game they had all year. Now they can see that when the message that Coach Jackson preaches to them is the truth, and see when they do what's asked of them, what the results may be.
absolutely. And I feel like, and this is just my opinion, um, they should they should start out aggressive the rest of the way. I think the formula to winning is be aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
You start out aggressive, and you get your opponent into that point where you got them pinned up against the wall, and you can keep the drives going, finish red zone efficiency, finish red zone drives with some points, 3 or 7 each time you get in there.
Seven.
7 is preferable, but if you can get 3 out of it, we'll take that too.
Fair
But
enough.
yeah, I mean, points is points. I mean,
Yeah, and that definitely came in handy against Albemarle. Instead of going for the time, taking a field goal to go at that time to go up 17-6 at that time. That changed the trajectory of the game and put us in a 2-score lead. And even when Albemarle rallied back to get that touchdown 2-point version, that field goal still up being the difference in where we held on to win the game versus potentially going to overtime, where who knows what might have happened.
right. So my thing is, when you're down there, think of 7. You know, that red zone, those red zone drives. If you can finish them,
Well, they finished their trials Friday.
that's what I'm saying. You keep that aggressiveness. That way, you got somebody pinned up against the wall. That's it.
Well,
don't take your don't take your foot off the gas.
what I like Friday about the red zone play about their red zone players, they didn't get cute. They just ran the ball right down the throat. They fed the beast. They fed Griffin. They fed May, and then when everybody was cued in on Griffin and May, then Hyatt sometimes would take it himself and punch it in there. Nevertheless, everything was north and south. It wasn't a bunch of east and west dancing, a bunch of fancy stuff. Is they got downhill, put a hat on a hat, and ran that ball right down Page's throat, and Page was never able to stop it.
Right. And I think if you carry that on into now, after a while, you run into somebody enough, they ain't gonna want to hit you.
Yeah. I
That's
expect
just what
I expect Anson to win by a comfortable margin tomorrow. I mean, they still got to. We know it's a prediction. Anything can happen when you deal with 16 and 17-year-olds. But based on if they continue to play, they're playing. I expect them to win by a comfortable margin tomorrow.
what's your score prediction? We ain't did
I'm
one
gonna
this year.
say Anson 34-10.
Hmm. Okay. Uh, I'm gonna do you one better. 42-3.
Ooh.
I'm gonna do you one better. 42-3.
Hey, at the end of the day, as long as at the end that thing say W on our side, I'll take whatever.
I take whatever. You're right. I take whatever. But I like 42-3. I feel like they could just dominate tomorrow. That's just me.
And I expect Jazir Griffin and Kendrick May, both of them went over 100 last week. I expect them both to do it again this week.
Yeah. You start getting that two-headed monster like we talked about before the season even started.
Right. Like the common and don't get me wrong, Jazir Griffin and Daquan Sturter are different type backs, but I'm talking. But when I think of that big physical back in Jazir Griffin, and I know Jalen Marshall has more downhill speed than Kendrick May, but Kendrick May is still a very good athlete. I think of that combination of that bigger back versus and scat back combination of Jazir Griffin and Kendrick May, and it start to become reminiscent of the tandem of Daquan Sturter and Jalen Marshall. And then when I think of the wide receiver Jalen Little, that deep threat on the other side, I start to thinking about Tyreek Hardison, who used to blow the top off. That formula is there.
Yeah, it's there.
And the one thing about it, when Coach Terry Schenkel was down here calling plays, he caught a rhythm with those guys. And it looked like last week the Coach Hyde is starting to catch a rhythm with those guys. Speaking of Coach Schenkel, man, I mean, a remarkable job he's doing at South Stanley. This is year one. Those guys are, I think, 3-2. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think they're 3-2.
And I know someone may say, "Well, look at who they play." I say, but at the same time, they played a very similar schedule last year. At this time, they were 0-5. So with the almost identical schedule, with the same group of guys, this guy against what they went 0-5 against last year has come back this year, and they're off to a 3-2 start. When you probably didn't think that South Stanley would even win 3 games all year. So Coach Schenkel is showing what he can do. When we lost him, man, that was a good loss. I thought he was an excellent young coaching mind and an innovative offensive mind who had potential. And now he's back at his alma mater in Norwood at South Stanley, and I know Coach Jackson's proud of him. I know everyone who's worked with him is proud of him. And this is a guy who was homegrown from Coach Jackson's coaching tree. His first coaching job was under Coach Jackson here at Anson. He was a position coach and then became an offense coordinator.
Yep.
Yeah, and now look at him now. He's the head coach of South Stanley, and already has that team's rebuild ahead of schedule. So I nothing but respect for Coach Terry Schenkel and what he's doing, man. Happy to young coach like that. And how old is Terry? About 30 years old, if that.
If that, I don't even think he's that old, but yeah, something
Young
around that.
man like that. I'm gonna say South Stanley. Enjoy him while you got him, because that young man is going places. He won't be there long.
Yeah. What was I about to say? Given the degree of difficulty, I'm not gonna say how do I look at it. I can say I think they're ready for the challenge.
Absolutely.
I think they're ready for the challenge.
One thing about these kids, they have resiliency, and I'm not talking about just football. You got to look at, and I'm not going to get specific, but you got to look at what, and we kind of talked about some of that last night when we had Sam on. Those kids have been through some turmoil.
Yeah.
And I know everybody goes through adversity in life, but I'm talking about at such a young age. Those kids at their age went through turmoil that we didn't go through at their age. At least the majority of us. And I'm not even talking about pandemic and stuff. I'm talking about I'm just some of their peers and stuff having to lose their peers at tender ages and stuff like that. I mean over the last few years, those young men have had to go to way too many funerals of their peers.
Yeah, and that's something that shouldn't
Shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
When you talking about from an emotional standpoint of of what those guys have been through, I'm sure this game that they play is more of a refuge than anything else. And the thing about it, they've had to channel those emotions and still find a way to get back to life. So I know they have the resiliency.
Yeah.
And I think that it's not what our kids are kids that everybody that society counts out. Society counts our kids out. Simply because of where they're from and the demographic and the socioeconomic structure of our area. And but one thing about it, I love the fact that when these kids were down for the count, they didn't just lay there.
Right.
Like the gospel song says that we fall down, but we get up. And
They got up.
yeah, and I'm glad, and I mean this metaphorically and figuratively. I'm glad to see them punch back, and I don't mean that literally. You don't want to throw a punch in a hostile game, you'll be suspended and ejected. But I mean, figuratively speaking, we may have been down on the mat, but that didn't mean that we stopped swinging.
No, we didn't stop swinging.
And
Yes.
the thing about it, what are we doing? There's still 5 more rounds to go.
Yeah.
There are 5 more rounds to go, and we have a puncher's chance.
We got a great chance.
So now it's just a matter of what are you going to do? Everything that you want is out there. It's sitting right there, available for you to get. If you want it, all you got to do is go out there and get it. All you got to do is win tomorrow. That's the first step.
Yeah, that's a start.
All you got to do, the first step, just win tomorrow. If you win tomorrow, you're one step closer to all your goals, and only 4 games away from reaching your goals.
Absolutely.
That's
I
all
want,
you can do.
I wanted to kick into what's that? Oh yeah, I wanted to kick this up that I seen earlier, and you and this guy made a good point. I was reading a post.
What's up?
The head coach from Penn State.
James Franklin,
Yeah,
who's
y'all,
African American head coach, by the way. But go ahead.
yeah, y'all made a great point. I think the guys, if I don't want to misquote him, but he did say y'all don't show him any love, but y'all praise Dion.
I'll be glad to talk on that. First thing, I respect Coach Sanders, and what he's doing is remarkable. So I'm not here to knock him, and
Right.
and I think he's as long as he's there at Colorado, I think they're gonna always be competitive, and they're gonna be a team that's if he stays there long enough or doesn't have other interests, a team that he'll make a national level contender. He's on the verge of that, and they're headed in the right direction. His son is an outstanding QB, and I don't think they're going to be USC tomorrow, but I think they're going to have a good year, and they're going to still have a winning season. And I think in the years to come, they're going to be a force to reckon with. Now, here's the something that bothers me a little bit. When it comes, you got a lot of people you can tell who just started watching college football 3 weeks ago when they started watching him, and some people act like that he's the only successful African American head coach in college football. Now, granted, African American head coaches are disproportionately represented in FBS football. There are 133 FBS programs, and
Yeah,
I think
only
and there are
14
like
black coaches.
14 black head football coaches, and that's and when the majority of the players and stuff in FBS are black. So yes, if I'm glad that a gentleman like Coach Sanders can get a high profile job and be successful in it and make such a turnaround. I'm happy to see that because it shows that hey that we have qualified coaches if given opportunity. But the narrative I don't like is like he's the savior of black coaches, whereas when you got Coach James Franklin at Penn State, who has the number 6 team in the country, um,
Right.
he's already led them to Rose Bowl appearances and then I think 1 or 2 Big Ten titles already. So and he's at a high profile program. He even had a winning record at Vanderbilt, which speaks volumes. And every year Penn State's been a top 25 team since he's been there, including a 2016-17 Rose Bowl appearance with the Big Ten title. This year they're in the hunt to win the Big Ten this year, to rank number 6 in the country. Notre
Mm-hmm.
Dame head coach Marcus Freeman,
Yep.
African man. That's number 11. They got the number 11 team in the country. They just came off a heartbreaking loss to Ohio State. Still ranked with a number 11 team in the country. They played number 17 Duke on Saturday. That's African American coach with a high profile program and has a top 15 program. So you got 2 black head coaches right there, top 10, 15 programs. One coaching the number 6 team in the country, the other coaching the number 11 team in the country. Then you have the undefeated Maryland Terrapins, which are coached by Mike Loxley. They're 4-0. They got a game against Indiana tomorrow. They're looking for their first 5-0 start since 2001. That program Coach Loxley took over. It was a bad program, winning about 3 or 4 games. So it's not like he inherited a great program. James Franklin picked up Penn State when they were kind of middling and coming off of probation from the Jerry Sandusky scandal when the program was looking to be falling off a cliff. Coach Bill O'Brien kept them kind of in the middle of the road for 2 years, built on them, and Coach Franklin came back and brought them back to the status of what Penn State is known to be traditionally. So, and
Right.
I know 11 more, but I'm naming ones at big time programs who are doing well. So, yeah, um, Coach Sanders is doing an excellent job in Colorado, and I support what Coach Sanders is doing, and I wish him nothing but success. But you got a lot of people who are not well informed, who you could tell just watching college football. Like when some young lady says that he's putting black coaches on the map for college football. I mean, he's bringing attention, and I like what he's doing. But you have black coaches, other black coaches who are doing really well. And then what bothered me is when someone said, "Well, he's the only one that's authentic." That's authentic. That's not a fair statement to make because we don't know any of these people. And so, how do we know that Coach Lockson's not being authentic? How do we know that Coach Freeman's not authentic? Just because they have different personalities or they don't have the flash and the sizzle doesn't mean they're not authentic. Furthermore, Coach James Franklin, he's one of the biggest trash talkers in the coaching sphere. I remember when they beat Pittsburgh, when they lost to Pittsburgh one year, then in his first year there, the next year they beat Pittsburgh, and he talked junk about Coach Norris Deuce's team when he said we beat them, it's just another game. When they beat us, it's their Super Bowl. So and he said I said what I said. So Coach Franklin, he holds grudges in the trash talker too. It's just that a lot of these people are not informed and they're not looking for information. They just go based on what they see. What they see. I'm not gonna say on the front page, but what they see on the social media and what's being presented in front of them. They don't have the effort to actually go look and see what's out there. It's just whatever narrative is being pushed right on them. That's what they roll with. So it's this narrative by some people. Like Coach Sanders may be the only successful black coach in college football when they're and you're not seeing these people jump on the bandwagon and say, hey, let's root for Maryland and Coach Loxley. Let's root for Penn State and Coach Franklin. Let's root for Notre Dame and Coach Freeman. You're not hearing that because a lot of folks just don't know because they're not really knowledgeable of college football. Follow it like that. It's just they jumped on the bandwagon and just going with the trend. Um, and
And, and,
and
and I'll say this before you finish. Uh, if history recollects, if you're talking about putting black coaches on the map, you can't say Dion. You know, you got to be, if you know Eddie Robinson was that guy.
yeah, Grambling now, but to be fair about it, and there's no knock on Grambling, but but we're talking about high profile FBS level. We're not necessarily talking about it. Now. Granted, Coach Robinson is one of the first a pioneer for black coaches. And what he did at Grambling, sent guys to the NFL and all that stuff out of Grambling.
I agree, Sam. That's a good point.
The
Seemed
first
like
black, hang on, man, the first black starting QB to win a Super Bowl, Doug Williams played at Grambling. So I have Eddie Robinson is a legendary coach, God rest his soul. But at the FBS level, especially when it comes to conferences, from those five conferences that are labeled as power conferences, I get what the young lady was saying. It's just that that's still not historically accurate. As far as that goes, Tyron Willingham coached Notre Dame before, and now they have Coach Marcus Freeman. Again, we have Coach James Franklin at Penn State. Coach Randy Shannon was the head coach of Miami. Granted, it wasn't the most successful run, but my point is he was still a head coach at a powerhouse program, or the multi-time national championship program. So my point is, yes, African American coaches are highly disproportionately represented in the FBS level and in the and especially in the five conferences that are labeled power conferences. But nevertheless, with the little representation, we still have examples of African American coaches who've done well with those examples, those aforementioned examples I made, who are currently doing well now, who no one is talking about because you have a guy who's at a place 1 year who comes with a bigger name, with a bigger following, and a bigger celebrity status because of what he's done on the field, and because he's a person that's kind of always in the spotlight. So people see and hear about him, whereas those other guys, a lot of those folks are not true college football fans or follow college football, so they don't even know who the head coach of Maryland is. Some of these folks don't even know who the head coach of Penn State or Notre Dame is, so they wouldn't even know. So in their mind, they've been led to believe the narrative as if Coach Sanders is the end all be all when it comes to black coaches and the representation of black coaches, which is not factually and historically accurate.
I agree. That's why I wanted to bring that up because I'm like that dude made a good point. I'm like yeah, he's turning the program around. They definitely won more games than they did last year.
We
Comes
just
from
had Herman Edwards at Arizona
six.
State. I know they fired him last year, but Herman Edwards had a winning record at Arizona State over the last 4 years before we fell out with the administration. So
I agree. Yeah, Sam. I agree. Coach Sutherland was a good coach.
Kevin Sumlin, yeah, when he was coach, led them to. Coach Sumlin has
A&M.
through the end of last year, through the same amount of games, Coach Sumlin had a better record than Jimbo Fisher, but Coach Sumlin got fired and Jimbo Fisher got a big extension. Coach Sumlin led Johnny Manziel won the Heisman at Texas A&M under Coach Sumlin, and when Coach Sumlin was at Houston, they had Case Keenum and they finished the season ranked top 25 in the nation that year. When
Yeah.
Keenum's senior year. But Coach Sumlin had a good record at Texas A&M, including 11-2 his first year when Johnny Manziel won the Heisman. Now he was wrongly fired, and that's where the issue lies because Jimbo Fisher comes in there and actually has a worse record and gets and still getting buku money. So that's what the problem lies. Willie Taggart had opportunity at Oregon and Florida State. Willie, when he took over Oregon, and you remember Willie Taggart because you're an Oregon fan. They were 3-9 the year before he got there. He went
Yep.
75 the first year, but then he left and went to Florida State. And
Mm-hmm.
he was left with nothing when he went to Florida State after Fisher left. But it didn't work out at Florida State. He ended up losing his job there. But my point is, there's precedent for black coaches getting high-profile jobs in college football. Sanders isn't setting any kind of new precedent. It's just that uh, he has a big following, and so with his following, more eyes are going to be on him, and that's where you got a lot of people who are not knowledgeable of college football and knowledgeable of the history of the game and knowledgeable of the current state of the game. They just go by what they're seeing on the social media and what they're seeing in the press and jumping along with it and going along with a narrative that's not historically accurate. Nevertheless, I think he's an excellent recruiter. And one thing I like about him, even though he didn't have much coaching experience, it seemed like he's an excellent leader of men. He knows how to fire guys up, and he knows how to put together a staff. Like he brought in guys like Mike Zimmer, former NFL head coach and NFL defense coordinator, as his defense coordinator. He brought guys who have NFL and college football experience on the staff, so he has an excellent staff put together. And to me, that's the signs of a great leader when you can assemble a great staff. And with that staff, when he's an excellent recruiter as well, and he's putting these guys in position to be successful. So I think he's done an excellent job so far. He did an excellent job at Jackson State, and he's doing an excellent job at Colorado. And I think that as long as he's there, they're gonna be relevant on the field. But at the same time, let's not get lost and push false narratives.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, we're not pushing false narrative. He's not this. He's not the reason when you
He,
have.
he's not a savior to black football coaches. I want to make that.
Yeah. Because like I said, there's been plenty of them before he got there,
Right.
and
And
they were
they
successful
got
in their own right.
they got a tough game tomorrow against USC. And for anybody who's listening, when I say USC, I'm talking about University of Southern California. I ain't talking about them bums down there in Columbia. They got a very tough game tomorrow against USC that I don't expect them to win, but at the same time, you still have to play the game.
Yeah, I don't know if this is gonna be for high. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be for a lot of Heisman points, or however they do their points.
If Caleb Williams is healthy, Caleb Williams is going to win the Heisman if he's healthy. Um, but nevertheless, before then, before Travis Hunter got hurt, I thought Travis Hunter had a great shot at it as a Charles Woodson-like winner. But how long is Travis Hunter still out?
They said it was 3 to 4 weeks because of the laceration.
Yeah, when he got hit on a dirty hit against Colorado State. They were very fortunate to win that game against Colorado State too, but
Yeah,
they still won the game. But that was
by the way,
huh?
a good late game, by the way.
Yeah. Speaking of Colorado State, a lot of people had a problem with what their coach said, and I get it. I want to make it clear: Colorado State's head coach is a black guy too, Coach Norvell. They didn't win a game, but for anybody who wanted to put a racial component on that, he's black as well. So that would, to me, trash talk is. I don't have a problem with trash talk. Guys gonna say what they're gonna say. Like that's all a part of the game. I don't know why everybody's getting so butthurt because they're hearing trash talk.
I
But that's
think
you got a lot of people that don't follow college football, don't even watch it. They just started watching this year, and so they're thinking like, oh man, that's not cool. I'm like, the dude talk trash. If you don't,
they've been doing this forever.
right, guys talk junk in pregame speeches all the time. Coaches throw shade at each other all the time. That's nothing new.
Just like the coach from Oklahoma State.
Mike Gundy,
Come at me.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing new with that. We've seen that kind of thing for years. Anybody who ever watched a pregame speech or watched post press conferences or whatever, that level of trash talk is not unheard of. It's a competitive sport, and guys gonna talk trash. I mean, but it seems like every time there's something now with these bandwagon folks who just started watching college football, they seem to get so butthurt about every little thing that's said. It's like that's because they just like Vince Dunlap said, you got a lot of people that just started watching college football 3 weeks ago.
You do, and I want to say
Stop
this as
there, they don't
well.
know what they're talking about.
And I want to say this as well. It's not even about a black coach. We're gonna say this because there was a lot of backlash that Oregon coach said a lot of stuff. But what did he say that was wrong?
Yeah, and don't get me, and of course he was talking trash, and of course he was throwing shade. That's all. It is what it is. They won the game.
He fired his team up to get ready to play. They came out and won. And what did Deion say after the game? That was an old fashioned butt whipping. We'll take it.
Yeah, like, he wasn't even tripping. Like Dion wasn't even tripping about it. It's these little whiny bandwagon fans are tripping. He's like, he done moved on. Like he
Yeah,
know they got USC in a couple of days. That's what he was focused on. Like,
yeah.
like he doesn't get caught up in the mess. It's some of these whiners who get caught up in it. Um, and like even
He knew
I mean,
going into that game it wasn't gonna be that
what
wasn't gonna be one of those
yeah,
ones.
that ain't even my point. My point is he's always been a lightning. They're always gonna be. He's one of those guys. He's polarizing. You're either gonna love him or you're gonna hate him. And like even when he coached Jackson State, Eddie Robinson, no relation to the legendary Eddie Robinson. The Eddie Robinson that coached what was it, Alabama A&M or something like that. You know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. He got mad with him during the handshake, and then he went in the press conference talking about something he ain't swag and all that. I'm swag. But this was built on the back of the other the real Eddie Robinson, and and the coaches and some of these other big name coaches from the swag. He ain't really swag. He just about himself. He do like even other coaches, HBCU coaches at the time he was at Jackson State, like another HBCU coach, threw shade at him and stuff. So I mean, and that's because he's a polarized guy. A lot of people like him. A lot of people don't like him.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that what the coach in Oregon said was accurate. I'm not saying that what Eddie Robinson Jr. said was fair accurate. But nevertheless, that's a part of the game.
He ain't sweat.
Yeah, you remember that, and that was last year. So I mean, that's just something where when you're who you are and you're unapologetically who you are, sometimes you're going to rub people the wrong way, and sometimes people are going to take offense to it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter as long as you win a ball game and do what you got to do. And then everything else takes care of itself.
Yeah,
And this Oregon won the game. It
yeah.
happened. You got your butt whooped. Move on. And the thing about it, people want to say, "Oh, well, they got blown out by Georgia last year." I'm like, "Yeah, they did. What they got to do with this?"
Georgia was a way better team than Oregon last year. So
They were, but whether they were or not, I don't understand how this is relevant to what's going on this year. That was last year. So it's
yeah,
like, but I mean, and there have been so many people still up to this week, still whining and crying about it. I'm like, they lost. Move on. It's almost like you want Oregon to apologize for winning.
they act like Deion is 0-4. He's 3-1.
Yeah, and they're acting like Oregon did something wrong to them. I said all they did was go out there and beat them, and they didn't run it up on them because they only scored one touchdown in the second half.
They let the dogs off.
Yeah, so I mean, but everybody's acting like they're mad at Oregon for only doing what they were supposed to do, win the game. It's
They
like
they they knew what they were doing. They came into with a good game plan. They figured it out. Regardless of what the media says or these bandwagoners said about the whole coaches, they can do that. There's no rule against them receiving tips. I don't
yeah,
think.
whether they did or didn't, I mean, they got lined up and they got blown out. I mean,
Yeah,
and just give the better team credit for being a better team. I mean, I don't understand why so many whiny people just can't do that. It's like, and look, I'm about to say they're Colorado's 3-1. Everything they're trying to accomplish is still on the table. They
yeah.
still look like a solid football team and still got the opportunity to continue to be a very good football team and continue to build. I'm about to say
They
they took the loss. It happens. Move on.
they've turned around their season in 4 games. So I'm not saying that they
And
like
they're gonna win more. And I think they're gonna come out. I think USC is gonna beat them, but I think they're gonna be more competitive against USC than they were against Oregon. They're coming back. They're coming off of a bad loss. They're coming back home. I think they're gonna. I think USC is gonna win, but I think that Oregon's gonna compete. I mean, not Oregon. I think Colorado's gonna compete.
Yeah, they're gonna compete, and I agree, Sam. That you right, but like he said that from the get go. I don't have the O line and D line to compete with some of these teams. He said that from day one. Now they competing. I that's number one. But
Correct. That's
he did say that he does not have the offensive line and defensive line. Give me some time. I'm gonna
yeah.
have what.
Yeah, but I don't like the playing it both ways thing. It's like when they were successful, you weren't hearing about any of that, and it's just like, it's almost like everybody's predicting to win all the time. Then all of a sudden, when they get blown out, they don't want to make the excuse. At the end of the day, they have what they have. They won the first three games with what they had, and won in two of those games. Again, they beat the national runner-up in TCU. Then they came back and beat a team that they were kind of like Nebraska, who's trying to find their way, and then they beat their cross-state rival in a come from behind overtime win. Uh, so we can't play that narrative. They can't play the. They haven't been playing the underdog narrative. They've been playing the narrative like we're the rock stars. You can't get your butt whooped and then come around and say, "Oh, we're the underdog." I'm about to say you can't play it both ways.
No. He didn't say he was playing it both ways, but he basically said, well, he said that from the get go of the year. We're gonna play what we got. I don't have the O line or D line, but we're gonna still compete. He got the skill. He got the skill position. That's a gimme.
And like I said, and a lot of that stuff against when you it got exploited against Oregon, and you it's going to be hard to beat USC with those same problems too. It's going to be
Yeah.
hard. It's going to be hard to beat Oregon State with those problems. It's going to be hard to beat Utah with those problems. It's not about to let up. Is what I'm saying.
No. It's gonna get that conference is really good.
Yeah, last year's
Even the bad teams are actually decent.
yeah. Next year they're going to the Big 12. They're going back to the Big 12, going back home. So
So this rumor I wanted to ask because I seen an article. I don't know how true it was. Clemson's leaving the ACC.
I saw that too. I haven't heard anything official, but I saw. I mean, but there've been rumors swirling about them in Florida State trying to get out. So
For what I seen, they said it was 2025 that they would be going to the SEC.
I mean, that's been rumored for a while. I saw the article today too, but I haven't heard any official reports about that. I just seen like,
Yeah, that's why I wanted to know. I didn't because I
well, you
seen it.
got to realize Clemson and Florida State were against Stanford, California, SMU joining, and they were mad about that. At first, they didn't have enough votes. NC State was the one they convinced, the league convinced to switch their vote over to yes. And the thing about NC State is so dumb. If the ACC ended up getting split up, NC State would be one of the programs that end up like Oregon State and Washington State, one of them left out in the cold. Because you ain't heard no talk about any of those. As far as the programs in the ACC that people want Clemson, people want Florida State, they want North Carolina, and they want Virginia. Those are the four that I keep hearing that the other conferences want.
Yeah,
Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, and Virginia. That's all I keep hearing.
that's
Uh,
great. So really, in the Pac-12, is only two teams out in the cold.
yeah, Washington State and Oregon State. They still haven't found a home.
Because what Oregon's going to the Big Ten.
Oregon's going to the Big Ten.
With
Colorado's going to the
UCLA
Big 12.
and
Arizona and Arizona State going to the Big 12. Washington is going to the Big 10, I think. We know USC and UCLA going to the Big 10.
conference in the Big Ten, except Colorado and
Now Arizona, no, them
I
going
don't
to
know
the Big
with Utah.
Arizona, Colorado, Arizona, Arizona State, and I know they're going to the Big 12. Utah's going to the Big 12.
Okay.
I was getting ready to say something else. Stanford. So at the time, Stanford, California, Washington State were left out in the cold. The ACC is accepting Stanford and California, and then SMU out the American Conference, same conference the UNCC is in. SMU is going to the ACC as well. So those are three going to the ACC. And so
The
there are
Pac
rumors that
too
there were
bad.
rumors that the American Athletic Conference and the Mountain West were trying to convince Washington State and Oregon State to join, but the American Athletic Conference, they said, screw it. We're on American Athletic Conference is talking to Army to get Army to join for football only to replace SMU and potentially someone like DCU or something to come for basketball. And the Mountain West is still trying hard to get State and Oregon State, but they don't really want to go to the Mountain West, so they don't even have a conference schedule for next year.
So basically, it's gonna be the Pac two or two Pac
or have to play independent or something. I don't know what they're gonna do. I got a feeling they're gonna end up going to the Mountain West somewhere because they don't have nowhere. They have no other choice.
Yeah, you got either Mountain West but
Or the
Big East.
American. I mean, it's either the Mountain West or the American. Those are only two teams they were in negotiations with. I would love to have them in an American. I would love to have Washington State versus UC Charlotte here in Charlotte. I love to have UC Charlotte versus Oregon State. I love to have those matchups, but you know, you got to feel like the money they've made. They probably feel like that's a step down for them. So, and I get it.
Well, I mean, sometimes you got to take what you can get.
Well, that's the situation they're in. They're beggars, and they're trying to be choosers. Speaking of Charlotte 49ers, we just the Valentine developer, I can't think of his name for nothing right now, Smokey Bissell. He just donated $25 million for our stadium expansion. The state's already allocated $25 million, and he just gave $25 million for it's an $81 million project. With our stadium, the eventual project is to expand the stadium up to 45,000, but for right now, we're just expanding it up to 30,000 in the immediacy. And so we now got that's going to speed up process because we got the state is allocating 25 million plus we got a donor giving 25 million. So now right off the top we've raised $50 million for our stadium expansion. We're doubling the size of it to 30,000. So hopefully by this, when we play Carolina in 2025 here in Charlotte, hopefully by then we'll be in our newly expanded stadium by then. Hopefully they can get started during all season now that they got the money. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean it's a good. I figured that stadium would be somewhere between 30 and 40,000 eventually.
Yeah, well, right now it's going to be 30, and eventually, which might be years later, the final phase one is 30,000. Phase two is 45,000. Right now, we're just doing phase one.
Okay.
So I'm excited about that, man. That's gonna help raise the profile of the program, and keep an eye out with people like Clemson and them possibly leaving the ACC. The only thing about it is if too many of those teams leave the ACC is going to be so watered down where it won't even matter.
Yep.
Because if Clemson leaves, I don't know who they're if Florida State leaves, I feel like they'll replace it with USF. But to me, USF, University of South Florida, they don't fill the void that a Florida State will leave.
So let me ask you this question: what's the? Because I don't know the gist of the story. What is the whole reasoning of all these teams leaving the Pac-12?
Money.
Oh, it's money.
That's the only reason. The Pac-12 they tried to. ESPN offered them a lucrative TV deal. They got greedy. They said that ain't enough, and we want more. ESPN said "F you," and then Apple TV or whatever tried to offer them something far less, and they couldn't get a deal that was worth what they wanted, and that ended up. Then so the Big Ten has the most lucrative revenue TV deal, so that's when USC and UCLA said we're going to the Big Ten. Then that's when Colorado was like we're going to the Big 12. Because Big 12 has a better deal than Pac-12 too. That's when everybody left. Because the Big 10's deal is the most lucrative. Then it's the SEC. Then it's the ACC network. Then hold up. The Big 10 network is like $800 million. That deal. And then the SEC network is like 500 or something.
Mm-hmm.
The Big 12 and ACC both are like 200 or something million, and then like the American Athletics is like 94 million. Then it starts the Mountain West like 45 million. Then like the Mac Conference USA whatever theirs is like way on down there like pennies on the dollar.
It's pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, I mean then Sunbelt and all that. You gotta realize, no disrespect, but nobody's and rushing to the TV to watch Georgia Southern play Coastal Carolina. Nobody's rushing to their TV to watch Miami of Ohio play against Bowling Green, and that's no disrespect, but it's just true. So those.
Well, I say one person I know would, but that's just on a whole different story. But yeah.
Well, I know your wife graduated from Coastal Carolina. I know she's a Chanticleer, so I get her.
Yeah, so she would watch the Coastal. I think we actually watched their first game.
Georgia State last week and got beat. I down at T.O. Field.
Yeah, we watched the UCLA game. I thought they actually were going to win that game.
Well, they were competitive in that game. That wasn't a blowout.
No, it wasn't a blowout. No.
They were in that game. That game was like 14-10 at halftime, something like that, wasn't it?
And yeah, they also have a Union County quarterback.
You ain't talking about the kid. I know they had the kid that played at Porter Ridge, playing quarterback
Yeah,
baseball.
yeah, he's
He
still there.
still
Yeah, he's still there.
he ain't left yet. Good God Almighty, he got what his 50th season?
I think this is senior year now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is senior year. But yeah, 'cause I remember him when Puerto Ridge actually was. Did they win state that year with him? Well, they
Nope. No, they got Lee McNeil, who's played at UNC Charlotte, got him to back state championship games, but they never won a state championship.
okay. But yeah,
They
you got and then
they
you got
got Porter Ridge got good around 2011-12. They got to the championship in 2000, the 4A state championship in 2011 and 2012. They lost both years.
then you had
One year they lost to Scotland County, and the other year they lost to somebody else.
then you got the good quarterback that plays at Carolina who played
Drake
for
May,
Myers
yeah, his
Park.
brother played basketball, Luke May, but Drake May, he played at Myers Park, played football at Myers Park. His brother played basketball at Huff up in Cornelius.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Drake May's is an excellent player.
Yeah, yeah,
People
oh
talk
yeah,
about, people talk about him as a Heisman hopeful too.
yeah. He's in that Heisman talk, rightfully so. They have a
Yeah.
good coach, Mac Brown. Mac
Matt
Brown's
Bruiser
championship.
after that, huh?
I said Mac Brown's the one national championship, not with Carolina, but
Yeah, that was a long time ago, but yeah,
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's still in the record. So
yeah.
you played a team, you played a team that nobody thought you was gonna beat. I put it that way.
Yeah, well, USC was so dominant that year. Nobody
They
thought
were,
it was going to beat USC. That was Reggie Bush who won the Heisman and all that stuff. They had Matt Leinart, Dwayne Jarrett. Man, they were like, and the year before they played Oklahoma, a loaded Oklahoma team with Jason White, Adrian Peterson, some of those guys, and beat them 55-19 or 55-18 or something like that. So I
yep.
think 55-19. So everyone thought they were going to beat Texas the same way they did Oklahoma the year before. But Vince Young just had a superheroic like effort,
Yeah,
Herculean effort.
Herculean effort. You know, it's crazy that the fact that one of the coaches on that staff ended up getting the same quarterback about what 4 years later.
What coach talking about?
Gene Chizik.
Oh, they used to coach Auburn and defense coordinator at North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. The defensive coordinator at Texas that year.
Okay. Yeah, then
Ended
yeah,
up getting
he
a
won.
job at Auburn and got
He just
Cam.
won a championship with Cam Newton at Auburn, and then
Yep.
they put him in to be defense coordinator at Carolina under Larry Fedora. But then after Larry Fedora got fired, he went too. But then Matt Brown brought him back this year, so he's the defense coordinator in North Carolina this year too.
They look. I watched. I think I watched two of the games. Carolina is pretty solid. I
Yeah,
got them
they're not
ACC
going to win no
anyway.
ACC title. No, I didn't like them. They were defensively sometimes yeah. I saw them against Appalachian State, and I was like,
But they had them games 2 years in a row. They was they
wow,
do
yeah. And
yeah
the Appalachian beat them the year before because they played 3 years in a row, 3 out of 4 years. Appalachian beat them when Sam Howell was there,
yeah
like Howell's junior year or something like that. They beat them, or sophomore year. It may have been Sam's freshman year. It was like 2019 or App beat Carolina 34-31. Then last year they Carolina won in a shootout 63-61 at App, and then this year Carolina beat App in double overtime.
yeah. I think that one that was like 63, so went to about 4 or 5 overtimes. If I'm not mistaken.
I think that was a regulation. That was just a shootout.
Was that in regulation? I feel like
Yeah,
that game overtime too, but
and App should have won that game, man. They went on one of the 2-point conversion, man. The dude slipped and fell wide open to the end zone. He slipped and fell short of the end zone on what would have been a game-winning 2-point conversion, I think, or would have tied the game up. And I'm like, they ended up losing that game 63-61. App was up like 34-17 in that game. They were up by like 3 scores, and Carolina came all the way back and took the lead on them.
what was I about to say? Oh, the next topic I was gonna say was the letter, the letter that was sent to the Jets organization by Colin Kaepernick.
Man, what? I don't understand this dude. All right, first of all, you took this whole stance on Black Power and all this stuff. You called the NFL slavery and all that, and now you're sitting there begging for a job. Like, what? You're gonna come? And I'm not. And he had every right as far as whether he knew or understood that was his rights. I'm not knocking him, and he shouldn't have been blackballed from the league. I thought yes, he's been blackballed from the league. I get that.
Yeah.
But they decided to organize a tryout for him a couple years ago. This dude decided to stand him up, not show up to try it, then go to some high school, complain because he had to sign a waiver, and then he didn't show up. So I'm like, he's not moving in good faith. I think what he wants now, he wants that image of being a martyr, that image of I tried, but they won't keep me. Because like the last few times, the last time there was an effort to give him a shot, he didn't even show up. That let me know he wasn't moving in good faith. Secondly, you sued them, which you had every right to. You won the suit. They settled with you. You ended up, and you said you compared them to slavery. You said the NFL Combine was like a slave auction and all that. You said all that and said this is basically modern day slavery. And then you're going to write a letter begging to come to the plantation.
Right? Can I come back, Mouse? Nah, that's not funny to slavery. I'm just using it as a joke.
But I don't get it. It's like he's making plenty of money. He's making more money with Nike than he made when he played. Everybody keeps talking about all the sacrifice he made. This dude's made more money since he stopped playing than he did when he played.
Yeah, he getting paid every year from the NFL. I think they settled for.
I'm not. That's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about his Nike endorsement. He signed a.
Yeah. What I'm saying, he's making more. You're right. I'm saying he's making more money. He coming back to get chump change.
Right, because he sounded like a $90-something million. It was a lucrative deal they got with Nike that he's still under when they marketed him. I mean, so he's making plenty of money, more money, but he's being presented as this guy who made this ultimate sacrifice of his career, even though with that supposed sacrifice, he's making more money than he would have made if he played and don't have to worry about getting hit or anything. Granted, the league did him wrong. I want to make that clear. I do think they colluded to keep him out of the league, and I think that's wrong. I want to make that clear. But since then, after attention was brought on it, there was an effort made to give him a try. Teams I think were scared to sign him, or I'm not gonna say scared, just chose not to. Let's be real about it. But after all that, it was agreed to upon the league to give him a tryout with teams and their scouts to see if they wanted to sign him, and he didn't even show up. At this point, that's like being offered a job interview after not being hired. Then finally, someone will give you an interview, and then on the interview day, you don't show up.
Right,
so at that point, it wasn't moving in good faith. And then when you say you're comparing it to slavery, if you believe that this is like a slave-like institution, then why are you asking? Then why do you want to be a part of it? So you're saying it's like the plantation, but yet now you're begging to be on the plantation. I'm not understanding it.
I'm not either. And my thing is, they gave you the workout to come. Instead, you opted out to have your own private workout. Why?
On the day of, with no advance notice, he basically just stood him up and didn't show up.
You could have just been like, "Hey, I wanna host my own workout. You guys before they planned it.
He should have done that way before the day of. He just didn't show up on the day of. At that point, I'm like, that's it.
Yeah, I knew it was over there.
So
I don't know if that was a message from somebody in his camp or from his head or whatever. CTE.
And so when he got woke or whatever, he got I guess he got to thinking he was Malcolm X.
Well, my friend, even Malcolm had problems.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not. I get originally when he was doing the protest, I get what his point was, and the point that he had made sense. I mean, the point when it comes to the injustices and when it comes to police brutality of and that time when you had like a slew of killings from the police by the police of unarmed black men and that type thing, and when it comes to the criminal justice system and how it's biased against black men in the sense of when it comes to sentencing discrepancies, like where black men get longer sentences than their white counterparts for the same crime, or how the corporate gets shorter sentences for when the victim is black versus they do when the victim is white. Those type of things. All those things that he was protesting against were things that you had every right to protest against, and were realities and flaws in our society. However, that still doesn't change the fact, as far as now, when you made the statement that this is slavery, and now you're writing a letter begging to come back to the plantation.
Right. And my thing is, those 32 owners are going to stick together no matter what.
Yeah, and at this point, they're not gonna sign him now anyway. When he didn't show up at that tryout, I mean, that was it.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, man, nobody's really. Let's just be honest. Nobody's really gonna give you that opportunity because you've been out of football for almost 10 years.
Like 7 years, but still. Granted,
Yeah,
I don't necessarily think it was all his fault that he was out for 7 years, but still,
yeah,
nobody, no matter how long he's been out, after he didn't show up at try, he ain't getting signed. His football career is over. So I mean, he might as well keep counting his millions to get off of Nike.
yeah.
And here's the thing about me: everybody act like he's such a hero to a civil rights / Black Power movement, like in the same vein as a Muhammad Ali type figure, or the same vein as a Malcolm X type figure. This dude used the things that like the horrors and the mistreatment of Black Americans and got a lucrative Nike endorsement off of it, and has made millions and millions of dollars off the exploitation of the Black struggle.
yeah.
And nobody talks about that. Because that's basically how he landed that deal with Nike. After he didn't sign with the team, they used and ran ads and stuff with him, like being this revolutionary. And he basically that propelled him to make to a lucrative multi-million-dollar deal with Nike, using his protest and basically made money off of it and cashed out off of it. And that's
Right.
another part that people don't talk about. They talk like he's a revolutionary who sacrificed it all, when actually he ended up making profit off of the situation and ended up making more money off of that than he did when he was playing, and basically um, propelled himself into lucrative money by exploiting the struggles of Black America in his protest, and used it to enrich himself. And that's the part that nobody talks about.
Right. But
I don't have anything else to say about Colin Kaepernick. I'm like, whatever.
yeah, it's just whatever. But we at the hour and 26 minute mark. About to close the show out. Tyree, I'll give you the floor.
All right. I'm going to use this as a congratulatory moment. If you're aware, in Anson County in the Sheriff's Department, our Lieutenant Ricky L. Little, he's retiring after 28 years. I know the man personally. He's a friend of the family. He's always been passionate about serving and protecting his community. He's a person that when you think of a good relationship between the community and police, I think of him. He's a person that always held himself accountable in the line of duty. And one thing I like about him, he wasn't out to looking for people to harm and arrest. He looked to de-escalate and make things better and make his community better. He's a guy that I wanted to become sheriff. I remember he ran for sheriff in the year 2014. Of course, the late great Landry Reed ended up winning that race, but he finished I think in third place in that race. Nevertheless, even after not winning sheriff, he went on to go from sergeant to lieutenant. And after 28 years of service, he's finally called into career. I just want to render a salute to the retiring, outgoing Lieutenant Ricky O. Little.
All right. And with that being said, we up out of here. Appreciate everybody for coming through tonight. Again, tune in tomorrow for the live. We will be starting the first round of the sneaker tournament tomorrow. So tap in for that. And yeah. Appreciate y'all for coming through, man. We up out of here.
See you.